Hi, and welcome to the Goodman podcast. Today we have with us a veteran of the telecom industry, Anurag Aggarwal. Anurag, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Raj. It's wonderful to be here on this podcast.
Thank you, Anurag. And tell us who's Anurag Aggarwal. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please. If that's all right.
Sure. I'm based in India in the capital city, New Delhi. I've been in the telecom space for over a decade now. I've been in India, born and brought up a person through and through, based in New Delhi primarily. So I've done my schooling, engineering, and MBA from the University of Delhi. And then I joined the very well known Tata Group, which is one of the largest conglomerates worldwide and the most respected and trusted in India. And here I started by joining their leadership arm called the Tata Administrative Service. And within that, I worked in different sectors. So I've actually worked in power, chemicals, beverage, steel. That's where I spent a lot of time. I was working with Tata Steel, and then due to a chance encounter with another one of my friends from my batch, I ended up in the telecom space. So I joined Tata Communications, where I helped set up the A2P messaging business. A2P is basically application to person. So any application or any enterprise who wants to reach out to their end customer, a human being, a person. So that's application to person. So I helped set up a platform and an international business around that. After spending over a decade with the Tata Group, moved on, and now I work as the Chief Revenue Officer of the enterprise business at a very large enterprise communication player called GMS, headquartered in Switzerland. We have been very active in the international A2P messaging space, which means the likes of a Meta or a Google or some of these hyperscalers, especially, or any other international brand who wants to send out communication to the end customer. But in the recent times, the company has moved on into much richer forms of communication. So we've invested into an all encompassing omni channel platform. We've also gone into new technologies like conversational AI and generative AI. My role, my prerogative is to work on building this entire ecosystem within the company. We've identified some target markets and we are seeing how we can expand in that.
That's brilliant, Anurag. Thank you for the introduction. That seems like you got your hands into different things and equally been in different spaces, but telecom seems to be your jam. I'm really interested to learn more about the A2P application to person messaging. Obviously, this is it's growing. There's always changes there, regulations there. For example, where are you seeing the A2P messaging market growing for GSM or even beyond within that industry? You see any trends there you would like to highlight for us?
Sure. I think the A2P messaging has always been on a growth trajectory. Initially, the focus of messaging had always been P2P, person to person. But then, I think about 15, 20 years ago, we started seeing the coming in of A2P messaging. The good part about this channel is that, as they call it, it's one of the most ubiquitous channels of communication. So whether you have a feature phone or a smartphone, the entire communication uh, infrastructure enables an enterprise to reach out to the end user on any device. So that ways that keeps this channel as always growing. Over and above this, there is always some developments which keep happening within this space. So what we are seeing now is that there is a lot more personalization, what they often call like hyper personalization and micro segmentation that's gone into this entire industry. So while the overall message the technology might remain the same in terms of an enterprise sending an SMS to the end user, but there's a lot more science which has now come into play in this entire field of what should be the message, what should be the content, how can we make it interactive. And because of that, there has been now also a shift from plain vanilla communication to a much richer form of communication. So we actually now have so many different OTT channels which have come into play. So whether you have WhatsApp business messaging, you have Viber business messaging, Facebook Messenger is also there. So the Meta ecosystem is of course there as well. Then you have your traditional SMS and voice and email. And another channel which is becoming very popular is RCS, Rich Communication Suite. Basically, RCS is like a more enhanced version of the SMS. It comes as a native application in an Android phone, and very soon Apple will also be getting compatible with RCS. So herein, an enterprise is able to send again a richer message which is verified, which has the branding, the necessary description about the enterprise who's reaching out to you. So the entire experience is a lot more rich. It's often interactive in nature, and it serves a lot of purposes, whether it's just to build brand awareness, or it's to get into a one-time verification, a one-time password, or just an alert, or even getting into a two-way conversation between the enterprise and the end user. So all that comes into play, and that's where we see this industry going to new frontiers now.
That's a great description, then, Rock. Thank you for sharing that. That does help to provide some context to the conversation. One thing you mentioned, which I'm really keen to explore further, is obviously the emerging nature of A2P. Is there one or two examples of innovation apart from the ones you mentioned about the hyper personalization of A2P, which you believe is a trend we'll see more and more so in the coming years? Or perhaps it's a company where you see what they're doing is pretty interesting from your perspective.
So, I mean, if you ask in terms of trends which are now becoming more popular, firstly, I think a trend somewhat similar to what I said, but I'll maybe expand a bit more. That's about building an optimal communication strategy for every enterprise. So what's happening is that I sort of give you the lay of the land, that all these channels are coming about and there is so much technology coming into play. Eventually, the trend that we are seeing, and I would definitely say that the overall solution is innovative in its own right, is that today providers such as us, GMS or other players, we are able to reach out to an enterprise and give a very tailor-made solution. If today, suppose if you are an FMCG brand and you want to reach out to your end consumer, it's possible that some of your consumers work better if they receive your communication over an SMS. Some are more interested in interaction. Some are old school, they'd love to receive a voice call maybe. So you have all sorts of different users for a brand, and from that perspective, there is a possibility now to offer a platform which enables the enterprise to get into a more distinct one-to-one communication strategy. So I think this is something which is playing a very significant role. The other trend, which is I think generally impacting every industry, and of course the telecom space, and I think we're still working out many use cases around that, but we expect to see this further enhancing in the days to come, is the role of AI, artificial intelligence. So whether it is generative AI, which creates a lot of content as well as helps generate insights, processes a lot of information, or it is conversational AI, which helps ensure a human like interaction and helps ensure that an end user is able to interact with an enterprise through a bot and does not really feel that he or she is talking to a machine. It's a more human like interaction that comes into play. So these are some of the trends which I think this industry will keep working on in the days to come. Overall, as I say, I mean, A2P, it started sounding a bit basic. Everybody's gone into a much wider space, firstly, of CPaaS, which is communication platform as a service. And even within CPaaS, we've expanded and it's become like a complete enterprise communication suite. So there are many different elements, and depending on which part of the element you'd like to talk about, there is another significant portion in this, which is CDP, the customer data platform. So here again, what happens is that we provide a platform to enterprises that allows them to ingest all the information into the CDP, and then the CDP can actually process it and be able to create unified cohorts, or be able to provide very detailed information, what they call like building a client persona. So you can actually build a 1:1 client persona. So for like if it's Anurag, okay, so Anurag is somebody in the age group of 35 to 40, has these sort of spending habits, has this sort of a dietary preference. These are the channels of choice for Anurag, and so on. And then maybe for Raj, things would be very different. And what's very interesting is that you and I could have similar demographical parameters, but there could be many other parameters on which we could be very different. Like for example, you're based in the UK, based in India. That itself is a significant difference, and because of that, it's possible that the way an enterprise should communicate with you might be very different from the way they should communicate with me, and all that is now becoming even more achievable through these new technologies which have come about.
That's brilliant, and I love that you covered a plethora of areas there, from obviously A2P to CPaaS, CDP, all of which makes a lot of sense. And you talked about AI as well, which I believe is a transformative opportunity for everybody in the ecosystem. It doesn't matter if it's telecom operator, whether it's service provider, you name it, they all have an impact. Do you feel there are challenges as well with AI at the moment, or do you see this only as a pro specific centric opportunity? Where do you see from your lens, Anurag?
Well, I'll say AI. I mean, firstly, they say AI has not come about now. It was always in development for I don't know how many decades. They talk about neural networks, so it's not something which has come about now. But yes, I think it started proliferating a lot more significantly now in the last couple of years. I think what I personally see and believe at the moment is that AI is working at breakneck speed and is providing a lot of different applications and use cases. But I think what's very important now is for all of this to come together into some realistic use cases and some realistic benefits which an enterprise can see. That you hear about that, oh, today AI can create videos, for example. Now that's great. That's what AI can do. Now, what really matters is that how are you going to harness this power effectively? This you have a tool, but if you don't know how best to use the tool, you might not really be gaining the right advantage of it, and in some cases, it might be to a detriment as well. So, for example, today there are definitely some challenges which one has seen. That, for example, bias. We talk about gender bias, we talk about racial bias, we talk about some of the uh, issues which a human intelligence has faced while interacting with artificial intelligence, right? So, to that extent, these are some of the areas which definitely require a little more getting a grip on making it into a commercially viable product. Once that is done, then for sure there is tremendous benefit in getting into AI. So, uh, to answer what you said, that where do I see things going with AI? I feel it's great. There are a lot of applications, a lot of benefits, and we see that AI is able to compute the same information or that same activity which otherwise a human being would take X amount of time. This might be an X by 10 or X by 100. So, to that extent, it's great. But I think the industry right now is in a phase where it is consolidating and trying to reach some sort of an equilibrium with some of these technologies to make sure that firstly what's being brought out into the market is something which does not have some of these potential risks or potential exposures, like a gender bias or a racial bias, those sort of things. That's something which needs to be made sure is taken care of. And then the actual application and how you're going to productize it, how you're going to monetize it, what is the commercially viable product you're coming out with. That is something which the industry is working on at the moment, the telecom space also. And we constantly see a lot of innovations in that field, and I think it's not a 1 day or a 1 year journey. It's a constant journey which will keep evolving.
Great answer there, Anurag. Thank you for being so articulate about your response and highlighting the challenges and the potential pros as well. One thing you mentioned also was CPaaS, communication platform as a service, and I've been seeing a lot of examples of different communication platforms. There's one tool I recently came across. It's called Grok, not the Elon Musk Grok, the other Grok, which is spelled Grok, where they had built a real-time voice communication service between the customer and the company, in which I think they use the example of I can't remember. I think it was a hairstylist, and they booked an appointment for it. So this is going to replace humans at scale. It's going to bring in opportunities for every service provider in the ecosystem. Is my guess. What are your thoughts on the rug? If everything goes well for the industry and for telecom market, where do you see in the next 3 to 5 years? What would be different about the industry? Perhaps someone like yourself in GSM, how would you see that changing in the next 3 to 5 years if all goes well with AI and communication?
Well, I mean, as I said, that sometimes it's a bit scary also. But yeah, I mean, as I said, that the level to which AI is starting to mimic the human interactions, the human persona, the human behavior, human responses, that's really quite amazing. I think what you're talking about is basically the likes of voice bots and voice assistants. So, like even in GMS, we have this, we've got what we call AI enabled voice assistant. So, there is text to speech and there is speech to text, or as they call it, speech recognition. And then over and above that, we also have capabilities now where you talk to the bot through voice, and the bot responds with a message, and you're actually interacting, getting almost into a human like conversation with the bot. And also these platforms have the ability that to switch to a live agent at a point where the bot can start realizing that maybe the user is getting frustrated or angry, and it's time to switch over to human intelligence. So from that perspective, I think these platforms are fairly evolved. I think in the next 4 to 5 years, we will see a lot more proliferation of these technologies, because for sure, these use cases have seen good responses in the market, especially small organizations, startups who cannot invest into tremendous manpower and have a very high headcount, especially if you're talking about roles like customer service or some basic level of marketing or some initial pre-selling to potential customers. In such cases, it's not possible for enterprises to invest in a lot of human manpower, and hence they would choose these artificial manpower formats of conversational AI. And I think, yes, they will keep increasing. There is always, of course, this entire debate that will lead to a threat to the livelihood of human beings today. So that's definitely, one needs to be cognizant that yes, that's it's not that it is not a valid concern, but what one needs to see is that it equally brings about a new opportunity. So, I mean, AI is only as good as how humans are able to, use it, until we reach a point of what they call artificial general intelligence, AGI. Until we reach that point, we still have AI dependent on human beings for building it. So to that extent, I feel that what would happen is less of people becoming redundant and more of people. I mean, of course, this is a matter of both the community in terms of the enterprises and in terms of uh, the human beings also put together. But I do see that a lot of workforce will shift from doing very monotonous jobs, what they call often like clerical jobs, to doing jobs which have more value add, to jobs which have a certain level of human sensitivity, which still technology cannot replicate. So more advanced concepts, advanced thoughts, advanced feelings. So from that perspective, I would like to believe that there will be a shift, a lot of workforce from very traditional formats of work to more evolved formats of work, with the most traditional and the grassroots activities, and slowly, slightly more advanced activities also being taken over by AI.
That's an awesome point you make, and I think if you look at the industrial revolution, which happened, decades back, and we still see that people did in the short term lose some jobs, and they moved from farmlands to towns and cities. Overall, the overall value add for everybody went up. We all got paid bit better. We all moved to better livelihoods, and we had a better quality of life. So yes, there will be a short term impact, but long term, it's going to just add more value to human beings. So
Right.
cannot agree more with you on that. Obviously, we touched on A2P, we touched on AI. I also want to look a little bit more on communication platforms as well, CPaaS as well. Where are the trends which you are seeing in Anurag at the moment? Apart from AI, obviously AI is a big part of it. Perhaps it's not, but are there any other AI independent CPaaS opportunities which you've been seeing recently, which you believe is a interesting trend to watch and monitor?
So you're talking about that we keep AI aside for a second, and even outside of AI, are there traditionally some new trends in CPaaS?
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, the answer could be no, there are none. That's fine as well. But I believe there are other trends as well. So, love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, as I said, that even if there is no element of AI, I think what's definitely something that is still becoming more popular, as I said, is more media-rich communication. So that's one trend which is becoming more popular. So that's less to do with AI, more to do with the fundamental channel itself. So whether you have a Viber, a WhatsApp, or even your RCS, so these channels are becoming popular, and this is more about an intrinsic value that the channel itself is bringing, even if there is no AI at the back end, which often nowadays is. But even if that's not there, at least I feel that these channels are becoming more and more popular, often replacing SMS or enhancing the overall ecosystem. So I think that's one major area where I see that I think changes are happening. Another trend that's happening, and it's slightly away from CPaaS, but I'll say still sort of in the overall same domain. It's what is called frictionless authentication. So what's happening now is that still, even today, to a large extent, entire format of two-factor authentication, wherein you put in first your regular password, then you get an SMS with an OTP, then you read that, and then you put that. That's what we often call as posing a certain level of friction, because there is that entire human element of extracting an OTP and feeding it into the application. While nowadays handsets have become more intelligent and they automatically the app pulls the OTP and you enter it, but still, it's not frictionless. What would be frictionless is that today I download an app, you install it for maybe a couple of seconds, it says authenticating, and then there's typically like a tick mark which is, yeah, authenticated. So that's actually another trend which is becoming more popular. So there are concepts like silent authentication, mobile identity, passkeys. These are some new technologies. Again, there is hardly a role of AI in this, or maybe no role of AI as such. But what these instruments are doing, what these technologies are also doing, is providing an option for an enterprise to authenticate an end user without the end user actually getting involved in the entire authentication process. So from that perspective, there is a good uptake which is building up. I'll still definitely say that there is time before these services become reasonably popular, but we've started seeing some growing trends already, and they're also to do with the fact that commercially these options are sometimes becoming more viable than actually going in for their traditional A2P SMS based authentication. So I think, Raj, these are two trends. One, as I said, richer forms of communication, and the second is alternate forms of authentication. These are definitely two enterprise to end user use cases where, even if we remove the AI element, there is still a good amount of progress happening in these areas.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think authentication is something which has been really annoying, especially if you look at banking, for example, where in the past, without naming any and shaming any banks, I've found it really challenging to kind of get into my account, which obviously I own and I really should be able to enter whenever I want to. But then with in the case with WhatsApp authentication or just direct in-app authentication has been become much easier, as you mentioned, frictionless. Do you feel that the big opportunity in the space is maybe the focus towards cashless economy, towards online banking, e-commerce? Do you think that's what's driving some of this authentication, for example, or is it also to log in into accounts like Amazon accounts, for example, which requires a lot of authentication as well? What do you think is driving these authentication requirements?
Right. So I think you made a good point out there about this word cashless. So I come from a country which prides itself on building a very robust cashless economy in the last couple of years, especially ever since the lockdown hit all of us. From that point onwards, India actually went on to a very, I mean, sort of the infrastructure was already there, and there was a certain rate of adoption which was coming in. But now I see that having catapulted manifold. So I feel that with the advent of cashless economy, and as I said, India is a good use case, there is definitely a lot more use cases which are coming about, wherein we see the likes of A2P messaging playing a significant role in that. You know, I am often when I'm out on the streets, you see a like in India we have what is called a rickshaw, which is basically like a unmotorized three wheel vehicle, which is it's like a cycle with something like a tricycle, but with passengers sitting at the back. So something as basic as even a rickshaw driver today in India is offering a QR code at the time of payment. That's uh, how deep the penetration of cashless economy has gone into India. For example, we have what is called UPI, a Unified Payment Interface, and we've thankfully taken this service beyond India to markets like Singapore. Recently, there was France. There are other countries also adopting it. So, with the growth of this cashless economy, definitely more use cases are coming about. So, whether it's in terms of authentication at the time of doing a cashless transaction, or it's in terms of alerts and notifications when a cashless transaction has happened, uh, or allowing marketing, for example, there are certain marketing opportunities also because uh, now when a user starts going cashless, there is a lot more transactions and a lot more digital information available about a user. Of course, one needs to make sure that data privacy is taken care of, so that I'm not denying. But today, there is a possibility to maintain data privacy, yet be able to cull out a lot more facets and characteristics about a human being who's doing a cashless transaction, and that can help ensure later that more targeted communication, more relevant communication can be made to that individual. Suppose if I'm regularly going to the likes of a Walmart and I'm shopping out there, so without revealing my identity, I can be actually placed into a cohort where Walmart users or departmental store shoppers, I might be considered in that category, and hence I might receive other targeted communication, which could be A2P communication. So yes, with the industry going, I mean, the world going cashless to an extent, we do see a lot more use cases of A2P coming into play, both to enable cashless economy and both as an output of cashless economy. So it goes both ways.
This is really fascinating, and I must say I've seen myself in my own eyes the impact of UPI and Paytm like services in India, and oh boy, the growth and adoption is phenomenal, especially in a country with 1 billion plus people. The opportunity size is humongous, to
Right.
say the least. Absolutely see that. And I can appreciate that it's not easy as well to educate people, which obviously is from a B2C perspective. So you're educating people who obviously perhaps don't understand how it works, but they just want the work to be done. They want to get paid or want to pay. I would love to understand how you as a company, as individual, educate enterprises who you sell to about the opportunity in this space, because I mean, this is going so fast. I mean, who would have thought you could actually get a code from WhatsApp into your account for verification of your for your login? But that's happening today, and I receive that quite often for many times, even from Netflix as well. They have that option now. So, how do you educate your customers about the innovations happening in the space, and how can they learn about this either from your education or from others, for example?
Right. So I think it's a very valid point, Raj. So what we definitely recognize the role that CPaaS providers such as us, such as GMS and others, the role that we play in educating the industry. There is a reasonably high consultative selling uh, role that we have to play out here. Had it just been your plain vanilla A2P messaging, then I can A2P SMS, then I can definitely understand that there is not too much. Even there are a lot of enterprises who still don't know about that, so you educate them about that. But now, as I said, that the technology has become so much more vast, and has there are so many more elements which have come into this. As I said, omni-channel and AI and um, conversational bots and CDP. So the entire ecosystem has become much more rich in offering solutions to the enterprises. Now, I think the likes of GMS, we do play a very significant role in that. So, our customer facing teams, my teams also, which are on the enterprise side, we play a significant role in educating the customer. So, we get into sometimes, depending on the size of the customer, if we feel that there is a very high potential, we get into something what we call a discovery process first. We try and understand the enterprise's requirements, what are their use cases, what are their pain points, what are their expectations, and then we're able to ingest all that information, process it, and come out with some relevant solutions which are most suitable for the enterprise. So, if an enterprise today is, say, a bank comes up to us, or a hospitality brand, or say hospital comes up to us, we are able to understand that what are the possible use cases we should offer to that particular enterprise. Like in GMS, we also have a programs approach. So, we run all our initiatives are around three types of programs that we offer. An enterprise platforms offer enterprise benefits around optimization, around revenue generation, and also around enhancing customer experience. So these are the three pillars on which we make our offerings. So we try and understand what is the role that the enterprise, what is the requirement that the enterprise comes to us with, what are the latent needs which the enterprise is not able to explain, but we are able to capture those, and are then able to provide some solutions, a mix of solutions or a cookie cutter solution, and are able to then help the enterprise be able to move further and meet their unmet and both their unsaid and their said demands. We are able to meet that through our consultative selling approach.
That's brilliant. And I can tell you from my own experience that this is required. A lot of companies struggle to understand what's happening in the market, and they need someone like GMS to kind of really understand and explain in a easy to understand format why it's important. I think, for example, just something you mentioned earlier about human interaction and making that easier. Will undervalue sort of sell that, but actually that's a very important part of people buying. If it's not simple to understand, they'll never buy it. They can't use it, they won't buy it, right? So I love that.
Absolutely.
Anurag, this has been a very educational and a actually a very good session to kind of learn about the ins and outs and what you're doing in various different areas, what the industry is, where the industry is going. Thank you for sharing that, Anurag. If the listeners want to and the viewers want to see and hear more from you, where can they find you?
Right. Firstly, again, Raj, thank you. It's been a very interesting conversation. Something I missed mentioning in the beginning, but I'll put it across now that I try to be very active in the industry and reach out to the industry myself as well. I run a podcast of my own. It's called Humans of Telecom. The focus is that there is so much more to Raj and Anurag beyond A2P messaging, for example, right? So, to that extent, the podcast focuses on bringing out the human side of some of the well known individuals, and whether well known or not, but anybody who comes with a good story, somebody who has something inspirational or something relevant to share with my audience. Even I invite people on the show, would love to have you on the show as well. And that's one way in which people can reach out to me through this channel. But other than that, I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. You can find me on my LinkedIn handle for Anurag Aggarwal. And if you type GMS, I think I should pop up. Yeah, over and above that, if anybody wants to reach out to me personally, I'm based in India, but I do thankfully move around the globe. So there are some events, conferences, something or the other keeps coming up. And if somebody reaches out, would love to find a way to catch up with that person.
Excellent, Anurag. Thank you once again for jumping on the podcast today. Really good to have you on. Yeah, we look forward to connecting with you further in the digital way through the online medium, but also in person as well. Hopefully soon.
Absolutely, Raj. Maybe in the coming days, if I come to London, or if you are coming over to India or any other place, I think let's be in touch. And I do look forward to meeting you. And thank you once again for having me on the show today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Anurag.